Hey, wherever you are in the world today, I welcome you to another 30 minutes of Soulful Living here at Empower Radio. I am really excited about my guest today, Rochelle Calvert. We're going to talk about her book. I'm going to look at the name. I want to make sure I get it right. Healing with Nature, Mindfulness and Somatic Practices to Heal from Trauma. I'm a little emotional because I feel like we have had the most traumatic year of our life here in the United States. And for me personally, I've had 2 years of one thing after another. And one of my greatest tools for healing has been nature. I have also been fascinated with the somatic practices, which I explained to Rochelle, I know absolutely nothing about. So with that said, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited about the tools you're going to offer to us today.
Thank you, Teri. Thank you for having me to share this with your community and this audience.
Yeah, so let's just dive right in. Let me just say, listeners, I will have all of Rochelle's information on the website. She has a PhD. She is brilliant. And the work that you're going to be exposed to today is amazing. So with that said, let's dive in. What is trauma?
Yeah, so I am very intentional through this book and the work that I share with people that I want to broaden the definition of trauma. That a lot of us often think about trauma very classically or kind of clinically, thinking that it's got to be a trauma if I went through a physical or a sexual assault, or I was at war and in combat, or was involved in a serious disaster. But really, when we consider that there is a definition of trauma that basically when we're in an experience that causes us significant distress, so there's some kind of a unexpected significant distress, and we really didn't have at that moment the resources to cope, to manage what we needed to through that experience, and we felt overwhelmed, we felt disconnected from ourselves, and we really just couldn't get back to baseline in the way that we might normally be able to do. That begins to widen what it might really mean to have experienced a trauma. And like you were sharing at the beginning, this last year has been full of trauma after trauma after trauma at the collective level. And so by that definition alone, and so then you begin to think, well, we've all been in that for this last year. And did we really have the resources? Were we able to get through it? Maybe we did to some degree. Maybe we really struggled. And then again, just more beyond the collective to the personal, this can range from, challenges where we might have had difficulties with emotional abuse, like bullying, or challenges in being in relationships, or a loss, an unexpected loss can often evoke a significant trauma reaction. And the climate crisis is another place that we can begin to feel the effects of that, like being pained by it or being in the midst of it, whatever that might be. And so I feel like I want to encourage people to really begin to view that trauma isn't something we need to see as stigmatizing or see as something that is a problem. It really is just the simple fact, and it's probably true for all of us, that at least at one point in our life, even if we just count the last year, we've been through a traumatic experience, and to begin to relate to it differently so we can heal from it.
Yeah, as a shamanic practitioner, one of my greatest offerings to my clients is a soul retrieval or a shamanic rebirthing. And some of my clients will say, well, I've had a great life. I don't have any trauma. And I say everybody experiences trauma differently. Maybe as a kid you fell off your bike,
right.
Or maybe when you were in that little group of friends in middle school, somebody might have made fun of you in public, or said hi to you in a way that hurt you deeply. And for so many years, we were told to just get over it, move on from our trauma. And the practices that you offer allow us to embrace them and gently hold them and breathe through them out in nature.
Yeah. And I think, to your point too, of that, every person's experience is different. Some person who falls off a bike may experience trauma and somebody who falls off a bike may not. And it really is individual, and it's okay to let yourself identify for you what that actually means.
Right. Yeah, because sometimes they'll say, well, I wasn't abused or bullied or, in a war zone and this year I tell people, I'm like, no, for God's sake, you're in a pandemic where we don't know what's real. Everything's coming at us.
Yes.
And many of us have lost loved ones through all of it. So it's present, even whether it's hearing it through our friends, it's present. And I love the steps that you offer, from, it's broken down into 4 parts, but each part has a chapter, and it ranges from breath work to the mystery of life, embracing the mystery. So there's something in there that we can use to move through those aspects and maybe relearn these tools.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to what you're pointing to, that the book allows the reader to scaffold their way through, to explore what they want to explore, that we can learn how to pick one, maybe front and center trauma that we really want to work on. And it could just simply be, wow, it's been a tough year. I didn't deal well with the isolation. The isolation could have felt traumatic. And use the practices to support healing that and come into a healthier relationship with yourself, and ideally transforming what might be stuck and not letting you live fully.
So I'm going to jump into that word, somatic practices. What are somatic practices?
Yeah. This is another word that I feel like has gotten clinically not represented correctly. So somatics in general is the awakening of the body. And it's a really simple way to understand it. We are pretty, head livers. We organize ourselves through our daily activities, through our brain and our mind, rather than really learning how to be present in one's body, fully embodied and alive with the potency of the fullness of the body, to then begin to kind of live from that place. And somatic experiencing is a trauma-informed therapy that was developed by a gentleman named Peter Levine about 30-ish years ago now. And what he recognized was actually that the natural world has such a great capacity to kind of, after a traumatic event, shake itself off, reorganize itself, and get back to business. But human beings don't have that capacity. And so learning how to re-inhabit the body is really what the primary impetus of that informed approach is. And what we do know is that when we have traumatic events and we didn't have a chance to restore regulation and balance from it in a healthy way, it becomes stuck in the body. And then as a result of being stuck in the body, we're engaging in certain patterns of thinking, of emotion, of behaviors that don't really serve us. So these practices of somatic healing help you learn how to be present again in the body, learn how to identify where the trauma in the body might be stuck, learn some skillful ways to reorganize and release that to step back into your life. And we do that all within the container of nature. So my work with patients, as well as personally from my own experiences, trauma work can be tough. It takes a lot of courage to turn inwards and face whatever it is we need to heal. And so this container that Mother Earth, nature, this beautiful sense of aliveness that's already here, if we can learn how to be present with that and use that as a resource, as a way to explore these practices, what I found quite a number of years ago was easier for clients. And so that was one of the many reasons that this came to fruition, to want to support people to heal with nature, that there were skillful ways we could support doing this work.
I liked 2 of the examples that you presented in the book. One of them was your own experience of witnessing nature after a fire, and how like a bunny came peeking out, but eventually everything in that field started to rejuvenate itself. My husband's a firefighter, and we talk about how when there's fires in nature, yes, it's devastating. Absolutely. Can't disagree with its devastation. It's also phenomenal how nature has the ability to rebuild, and that even within the confines of that fire, sometimes when you move away the ashes, you'll see green already sprouting through.
Right.
Um, and the other thing was, you talked about one of your own clients who at first was very apprehensive about even closing her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But through walking with you in nature and meditating in nature, she was able to really reconnect with her physical body and her emotional body and dive into the practice deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's really beautiful about hopefully each person's journey on their experience of these practices is that we're finding what our own nervous system, what our sense of embodiment really needs. Right. And nature, as you were pointing out in the example of, once she's experienced a trauma, she rallies the resources, they all work together, and it continues to thrive. And so there's a way that we can do that as well. If we can lean into whatever it is that we might need. And so the book explores different ways that you can, learn that maybe you really connect to feeling very held by, the earth. And that really becomes a great resource for you to do this work. Or maybe you really find that your nervous system really enjoys being by body of water. And so there's lots of different ways that, again, we can discover what makes sense for probably the experience of the trauma that we had, and as well our own just kind of unique sense of what and how we're going to feel most connected to heal.
Mm-hmm. So you incorporate breath work, mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what mindfulness looks like for you.
Yeah.
And mindfulness in nature.
Yeah. It's so I'm smiling because the definition of mindfulness is so vast that it's really difficult to capture in one simple sentence, but I will offer one that I do offer in the book, which is just simply clear and kind awareness to our experience of what's here. And mindfulness in nature invites us that we can be clear and kindly present to the inner experience with the support of this beautiful outer container. Really, when we practice mindfulness, we can learn this deep sense of connection to the inner and the outer and realize they're not separate. And that has a very potent healing potential for us. And when we can, like this is my garden in my backyard, and I sit here most days and, present to my breath with the breath that's offered from these plants. Mm-hmm. Is a very different intimacy and a different kind of embodied connection to myself and to where I am and to how I can heal, right? And so this inclusion of all of the different forms of what nature might support us with to be present inwardly just allows, I think, a deeper sense of that interconnection and intimacy for healing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, you talk a little bit about the reciprocity, like when you were talking about sitting there with your plants and absorbing that, what we give back to the plants is equally as beautiful of a process. The shamanic world, we call it Ayni, and in yogics they call it Ayni, Ayni, and it's just that perfect symbiotic reciprocity that we can give to nature and nature gives to us. Oxygen and, carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That perfect reciprocity that we give to each other and how much we need each other. So it makes sense that we have this beautiful opportunity to heal within that we don't always think about, because we're always enclosed in these. We tend to think of it as we have to heal within these four walls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we forget that it's really as simple as getting next to the window and opening the door.
Yeah.
And we're so easily drawn to what she offers us for healing. It's like, it doesn't take much, and I walk out here and I see a new leaf or a new color and it's like, of course, I'm pulled right into that relationship of being here, being with myself, being with the sense of what's here. And so it's a very easy, I think, a natural doorway for people to experience healing.
Yeah, I love what you said just a second ago about seeing what's out there, and in the book you talk about seeing a bud, being aware of just seeing that bud. And as you practice it more and more, those things come into your awareness and you can appreciate them easier. I start my day outside.
Mm.
Unless it's below zero, I start my day outside. And it can get like that here in Michigan. I'm sure you don't experience that.
Not here.
It can get that. And I take my dogs and head outside every day with my coffee. That's my morning moment of Zen and mindfulness. But people get so hung up on what mindfulness looks like, and you make it easy.
Thank you. Yeah, and it really can be. It doesn't, I think, have to be this perfect, sitting still in a quiet room, all things perfectly,
Which it can be.
Right. It can be. That's one form, but there's also this, amazing form of lying on the earth on a patch of grass, or resting your body against a tree, or marveling at the sky, right? Just lying and allowing, and eyes open, resting in the vastness, right? And how that might help, again, support a greater sense of being in our bodies and being able to work and heal with whatever is going on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Again, listeners, I'm chatting with Rochelle Calvert. We're talking about healing with nature, and not just her book, but the many opportunities that she has available. Personally, I saw a couple courses on her website that I would love to dive into. And you have a couple retreats coming up as well that are live
Live in person.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, thank you. So in August, late August, I will be at the Rocky Mountain Eco Dharma Center. It's a beautiful lodge and vast land. I think they have about 50 acres that we have access to practice and to be together. And that entire retreat is on this book. It is healing with nature and exploring the various ways we can integrate that into our healing. And then I have another in-person retreat, which I'm very excited about, that is right before the Thanksgiving holiday, out at the Ghost Ranch, which is in New Mexico, kind of between Santa Fe and Taos. It's Georgia O'Keeffe's beautiful ranch, and we will be at the base of those exquisite mountains to be able to, that she painted, that we will be able to practice same healing with nature. We'll be exploring the book. And then the last thing to maybe share is in October, I will be holding an online live weekly 6-week course on this book that people can join from anywhere. So if they're unable to travel, they can just join me virtually, as we're all pretty familiar with this past year.
We sure are.
To be able to explore the teachings in the book as well. And I'm also in the process, hopefully by the end of the summer, if none of those options were to work, I'm going to create a standalone course that will accompany the book, that if people want to read the book and be able to take a course with me but can't because of the timing sit with me, that they'll be able to have access to that. So stay tuned for that. That's coming.
Beautiful. I might be one of those. I would love to do all of them, especially the Georgia O'Keeffe. That just sounds amazing. And what a perfect time to offer that, like right before Thanksgiving, because when you come out of that, you'll have so much to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Like that just gives me chills from head to toe. That's really beautiful. So you offer so many different practices within your work. Do you hold private sessions?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I work with clients actually around the country and then locally, and I'm actually in transition with my own life. I've been living in San Diego for 20 years, but I'm relocating as of September to Taos, New Mexico. So which is one of the reasons I'll be teaching out there quite a bit more. But yes, absolutely. All virtual these days, or in person if you were in that neck of the woods. And absolutely to reach out for me for that kind of support as well.
Beautiful. So some of the titles that drew me within the book were when you got to the part about healing your connections and living with integrity and healing the earth. And my very favorite one was the last one, which I have not read yet, Trusting the Mystery. So since I haven't gotten that far, will you expand upon that? Give me a teaser about what I'm going to experience in Trusting the Mystery.
Yeah. Well, it's all divine, so we'll just start there. But yeah, that last section of the book is dedicated to inviting us that as we become more embodied and healed from our trauma, that we have the potency and the potential to create ripple effects in many different directions, whether that's in our immediate community, the way we're living in our lives, the way we connect to the earth. And then the last chapter that you're pointing to is, and so now what? So if I'm really, deeply present with myself and feeling this ability to offer and extend the potency of my healing in different directions, what else can I wake up to? And maybe there are doorways that we begin to flicker into where we touch the spirit, or we touch the sense of, how there's really energetic life in everything, and trusting that, I just as an example, these ferns behind me and a few of my aloe plants have been passed down for generations in my family, and they have traveled with me in my gardens. And I when I'm really deeply embodied and present, I can feel that energetic expression and spirit and connectivity beyond what the plant actually is in its literal form. And so that mystery of that last chapter is really just awakening to what are those, right? Like sometimes we go, and we just dismiss like that little, intuitive messaging, some sense of that divine mystery that's there for us to begin to really potently feel and sense and connect to. And that we have the opportunity as we heal in this way to connect to that and sense that and absolutely taste that in a real way. So I'm pointing to that in that chapter.
I love that. And I love the language using the word taste. I will often say to my clients, this is an opportunity to taste something completely different, just like you would on a hot day, have never had a taste of a mango, take a bite into it and see what it's like, right?
Exactly.
This practice in healing with nature, and you provide various tools, various scenarios to be able to taste what works for you. And I loved that you talk about basically take what works and leave the rest.
Yeah.
This is insight, this is information, and you found it works for yourself. You found it works with your clients. It's an opportunity to taste it, tweak it, just like a recipe, and make it work for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually feel like my deepest hope with the potential of this book is that it does just that it really lets us taste our own unique flavor and connection to the beautiful world, and have that reciprocity to give back from that particular place, and that these are ways to enter into that experience.
Yeah. And you also talk about how when you heal yourself, you have the potential to heal that around you. And to me, that's a beautiful reciprocity. Yeah. Healing yourself and then healing the things around you. Okay, well, Rochelle, we're down to the wire. I think we only have a minute or two left. And listeners, I want to remind you, come back to the Soulful Living page here at Empower Radio. Look at all of Rochelle's information. Visit her page. And if you're inspired, take one of her online classes. Definitely grab the book, Healing with Nature. I want to get the title correct. Mindfulness and Somatic Practices to Heal from Trauma. We all need that right now more than ever. And if you are inspired to take one of our online classes, message me, because maybe I'll take it with you, right? I'm excited about that. And Rochelle, I love for my guests to leave the listeners with something to take out into the day to elevate their soul, maybe to help them heal a little bit. What would that be for you?
Yeah. I think I would just invite today, or as the week unfolds, whatever allures you in nature, let it allure you into yourself. Like, if I see a beautiful color, can I stay present with it long enough to feel what happens inside my body, to feel how that nourishes, to feel how it heals, even if it's just for 20 seconds, right? Or maybe you stay longer, but that potential is here. We just need to slow into it and to be present and to let ourselves somatically wake up to that. And as we've been discussing, feel that reciprocity and see what emerges from there, what beautiful mysteries might emerge.
That's beautiful. And what a huge opportunity to be mindful of everything around you. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And I will be in touch with you along the way.
Great.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.